Welcome, everyone. My name is Karen, and I'll be hosting today's webinar, From Soil to Soul, Regenerative Agriculture Education for the Next Generation. This is going to be an amazing conversation with the dean of the program and a student/assistant professor. So we have a lot of wonderful information that we'll be covering. And this is just a little onboarding to the university that we represent, and I still see people climbing in. So before we really get started, a couple words about the university. So we are Maharishi International University, and we are a fully accredited nonprofit university accredited by the Higher Learning Commission. And our tagline is Home of Consciousness-Based Education, and it's always my delight to explain what this is. We have really been promoting the idea of developing the self, developing consciousness as the primary way to nourish the student. And we have a technique called Transcendental Meditation Technique, which was brought out by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who is very famous in the world for teaching the Beatles meditation. But primarily our identity is with formulating a community, creating a community and nourishing that community to be one with heart. And as we've tended to the self, naturally our ability to nourish the environment has just grown and grown and grown. And we had the first sustainable living degree in the country, and now it's really evolved into regenerative agriculture because, as you all know, it's a lot more than organic that will really help this planet turn around. And we have our specialist here, Jody Hill. But just a few more words about our intentional community, because out of this community developed the university. It's really important to understand it's an intentional community and a university in one. So there's no community like this in the world. And the consciousness element is that the technique that we're teaching is this two-part mechanism. So yes, it is a calming, relaxing technique, but it's also designed to settle the mind until it starts to transcend even the source of thought and bring the knower into a field of pure consciousness, which is your source of creative intelligence. And when you start to enliven that, you really start to nourish the self in a way that allows you to replenish yourself. And naturally, from that filled cup, you tend to your environment. And of course, as you do that, the interest tends to transfer to like, what's the best way to take care of the earth with the consciousness of the people around you, with the all living beings. And so with that, we have Jody Hill here to tell us more about that. Before we get started, we want you to know you're part of this conversation. You are going to be, just like in an online classroom environment, asking questions, asking for clarification, chiming in if you want to know a little bit more about something that was presented. So there's a live chat function. So these are the four main topics we'll be covering. Learn how consciousness-based education leads to a sustainable future and why you need that consciousness bit to really create that transformation. Also, how to apply regenerative agriculture practices in any setting. Note that this is an online program. There's an on-campus component, but this is primarily online. So this is bringing it to you wherever you are. We'll also hear insights from lead faculty and students. I think it's so far 2 panelists. Oh, there's 3. Cool. And we'll also be exploring that flexible online on-campus option so that wherever you are, if you want to join us here, great. But if you can't move, we totally understand. And we'll have a learning option for you. So let's turn it over to our panelists, and let's start with the Dean of the College of Sustainability, Jody Hill. Welcome, and thank you for being with us today.
All right. Thank you so much, Karen. And real quick, I am the Dean of the College of Sustainability. I came on at NYU about 4 years ago, and I am from East Texas. And so it was definitely different and way more fulfilling than the things that I was used to seeing. Because normally what we see here are practices that tend to degrade the soil. We have beef cattle and we have hay fields and we have a lot of poultry production. And I never really was happy with any of that. And so actually, Dr. Jim Schaefer, who's joining us today, he found me originally and brought me to NYU, and I have never been happier. I've never looked back. And a lot of that has to do with the consciousness-based education that we provide here. We really take the approach of nourishing or nurturing the person as a whole, and we approach our teaching in a way that is holistic. And so we don't just teach you the pieces that you would learn from a book and then regurgitate for a test. We actually link all of these pieces together while teaching in a way that promotes that consciousness component. And so what it does is it really nourishes you as a person. And we have a lot of diversity because we're an international university. So I can honestly say I have learned so much just by working here at NYU and by teaching and hearing everybody's unique experiences. And as we've seen from the chat, we have people from all over the world just joining this single webinar. And so our student population is very similar to that. Dr. Jim Schaefer, he does work. I can't even count the countries he goes to in probably a month. And so he's continuously building programs internationally, and it's all, revolving around regenerative, sustainable, organic practices so that we can nurture communities, we can nurture individuals. So we really focus on that holistic aspect when we teach. And so part of the things that we offer in the Department of Regenerative Organic Agriculture is we have undergraduate programs, including a bachelor's in arts. We have, in that capacity, we've got both online and on-campus experiences that the students can choose from. One of the requirements is that a student completes an internship somewhere. And the options for that are, I would almost say, unlimited. So you find a place that fits with the desires that you have. And then we work with each individual student on those internships so that we make sure that it meets all the objectives of the academic side. But then we definitely tailor each individual project to the student's needs and wants. As far as the curriculum, for the undergraduate BA, for example, it covers the same things that you would find in any other university. We are an accredited university, so we are in alignment with those accreditation policies. So when you leave here, you get what you would get at another university, but then you also have that addition of the consciousness-based approach, which really nourishes the person as an individual. We also have a Master's of Science in Regenerative Organic Agriculture, which is very exciting. We have people from all over the world. And with that one, it is primarily online based, but we also have an on-campus version. And so with the help of Dr. Schaefer and others, we've been restocking our soils lab to really kind of shore up our research component that we have. And this will help to address the research projects for our master's students, as well as for our new PhD students. And so Dr. Jim Schaefer, this is partly why I was really hoping he could make it with us today, despite him being in Zambia right now. He is the director of our PhD programs. And he has been, helping to stock that lab. And then we are developing all sorts of capabilities to enhance research. So where we work in an international context, and we also, support our students here at NYU in Fairfield, Iowa. Denise Pagley Jefferson, she actually is a former Master's of Science in ROA student, ROA being Regenerative Organic Agriculture, and she has used her degree to purchase land in Jamaica. And she is actually in the process of establishing a regenerative organic farm in Jamaica. And Denise, please correct me if I'm wrong, but she's also looking at developing, an agritourism type destination. She's looking at taking land that was formerly degraded, and she's applying a lot of the concepts and the principles that she learned at NYU. I will let her fill you in on all the humanitarian things that she's doing right now, but this ties in also to the agriculture component that that she learned through some of our programs. So we really are a unique program, especially this day and age. We have a lot of people that are really starting to recognize the importance of being sustainable, being regenerative. We see, the adverse effects of climate change. We see people in poverty. We see a lot of just kind of internal strife going on. We're a very polarized country, for example, in the United States right now. And so a lot of what people need is to be part of something greater than themselves. That is a positive thing that we can all join in to try to make the world a better place. And that's really how we take the consciousness-based approach in order to maximize what you learn on the academic side. And so,
You start with some definitions here. So I don't know where
yeah,
everybody's at, but I do know for myself, so maybe others as well. How do you distinguish between like or regular agriculture, organic, and then the regenerative agriculture, please? Can you walk us through those things?
absolutely. And Jim can fill in even better when it comes to the organic version. Okay, so organic is essentially it's a legal definition. So there's a lot of laws, there's a lot of specific approaches in order to achieve that organic certification. We're the only program in the United States that teaches a regenerative organic agriculture curricula. And so what we do is we have the organic side where you learn how to actually practice in an organic way. You have conventional agriculture, which we do not teach, and we have regenerative agriculture. Regenerative, I would look at as more of a kind of a principle of practice. So what you're doing with regenerative is everything you do is with the focus of improving the soil. When you start with that soil and you improve the soil, you're naturally going to improve the sustainability of any operation. The difficulty we have is that with regenerative, you're not focused purely on your annual profit like you would see with a conventional industrial type operation. And so we're teaching in a way that instead of continuing to contribute to climate change, we're looking at ways to restore carbon in the soil, to enhance the microbial activity in the soil, which this is critical for the long-term sustainability of crop production. If you restore the soil, you then improve your water infiltration, your water availability. You're nurturing communities. You're giving them the tools they need to produce food in a local setting so that they can nurture their families, their children, and do it in a way that you can have enough of a profit to sustain from year to year. So with conventional
Did you
agriculture,
start off in like the regular style? How did you get into?
yes, ma'am, I did. So, and like I said, I was always kind of in my heart thinking this isn't quite right, because when you practice conventional agriculture, what you're basically doing is you're making the land dependent on synthetic inputs, and synthetic inputs such as fertilizer, they use very high energy processes to make that fertilizer, for example. You're missing out on all of the variables that maybe are not so obvious. So say you go out and you apply nitrogen as your first limiting nutrient, and you're using nitrogen produced synthetically. You put that out there, you're not feeding the microbes. You're making pretty much a band-aid to get your crop to produce top growth with no consideration on how is that land then going to be able to tolerate seasonal drought, or even, you have variation in your climate that you're going to have drought years. So then those crops that have become dependent on these synthetic inputs and a depletion of that soil organic matter, it's not going to be able to withstand some of these natural weather variations that you see year to year. And then, of course, with with changing climate, we've got, you've got increasing drought, increasing floods. So how do you keep your land from, stopping to produce when it becomes tested in those ways?
You're loaded with knowledge, and I'm almost thinking like, before you move on, maybe we should bring Jim Schaefer into the conversation. And I know he brought you in, so I'm curious about
Yes,
that
ma'am.
relationship. So, Jim, can you tell us a little bit about your past with MIU, how long you've been here, and what this consciousness-based approach is, or however you would want to define it?
Okay, thank you. Nice to be with everybody today. As Jody mentioned, I'm in Zambia, and my purpose in Zambia is to create a new university called Maharishi Agricultural University for the continent of Africa. At MIU in the United States, we have a long history of agriculture endeavor that goes back to approximately 1980. And that's when I started doing projects for MIU in the field of agriculture. We created the Radiance Dairy Farm so that we have our own milk. It's very popular in our community there. We have created horticultural production systems. MIU is part of a global organization, and that global organization is an NGO, a non-governmental organization. And in this NGO, we have different divisions. One of the divisions is education, and we have universities in different countries. We have secondary and primary education in different countries all over the world. And another division in our global NGO is agriculture. And through that division, we have efforts in MIU, our work in our global NGO. A lot of that work goes through MIU. And we invest in regenerative organic agriculture. We advocate for that all over the world. Okay. Another element that is unique to MIU and our global NGO is we advocate for an integration of ancient science, ancient methodologies that take place in agriculture, for example, our medicine, our people's health, our education, and we integrate that with modern science. So MIU has this unique flavor to it where it is a combination of ancient science and modern science. Okay? So our university has been here for about 50 years plus, and some of us have been there for about 40 years. And in terms of the history, that gives you a feel, Karen, for some of the history and the global footprint that we have. And MIU is an integral part of that footprint around the globe and a very important institution for supporting what we do intellectually. Okay, in the field of agriculture, we have, for example, myself, I'm part of our global NGO, which is based in the Netherlands. And my particular area of expertise is in our what's called the Ministry of Agriculture. And teaching about organic agriculture, regenerative agriculture, and an ancient form of agriculture, which is called Maharishi Vedic agriculture, is unique to our global efforts in agriculture, and it's also unique to MIU. All right, so we have and part of the business of Vedic agriculture, that element of ancient science, as it is represented at MIU, is referred to today as consciousness-based agriculture. So we are a consciousness-based educational institution. And when we bring that ancient science to play in an academic setting like Jody is leading, and Janice is involved with, Denise is involved, and you're involved with, Karen, it creates a very interdisciplinary function. Okay, so this consciousness-based approach, it tends to link all of the disciplines together so that you experience them all as one. Okay, so it shows you the commonality, how things are linked together. It is an integrating factor. And it's really good for students to be exposed to an education process that has this very strong, powerful element of integration. And it's quite unique in the world of education all over the world. Okay, Karen, does that do the job?
That's beautiful. It's just, you have such a way to really describe it. And you've been there since the beginning, and you were right there with Maharishi. So I can feel that quality in you speaking, really knowing inside out what it is to build a program that is integrating in this unique way. So the term that he tossed out was Vedic, Vedic, but to make it a little bit more understandable, we use consciousness based because Vedic knowledge is just attending to that universal domain of life. So we really, at this point, I think it'd be so great to hear from Denise because there's nothing like hearing from a student who took this knowledge and is really making it come to life. So where are you right now? And tell us about what you're doing there.
Hi, everyone. Denise Kegley Jefferson here. I am in a closet where soldiers sleep to get some relief in a 24-hour command center in Kingston, Jamaica. I currently have been activated with World Central Kitchen as a humanitarian to provide humanitarian assistance to those in need in response to Hurricane Melissa. I would love to piggyback on what Dr. Schaefer just mentioned about the interdisciplinary approach that my degree program, I think, certainly launched me into. I did the master's program. And as a humanitarian by profession, I have spent a lot of time working on big food security issues across the globe. And one of the things that became very apparent to me is that we have to move towards these climate resilient practices, right? We've got to diversify. We've got to harvest water. We've got to be really smart about how we're using our natural resources and not kind of put all of our eggs in one basket, so to say. So moving from monocropping, also, as mentioned, I think in the introduction by Jody, I've purchased 16 acres here in Jamaica and started building a food forest, for lack of better words. So agroforestry is another one of those techniques that I think is really important when we think about global food security and sustainability as our world just becomes ever increasingly more challenging and unpredictable. Thank you.
Well, don't stop. We need to keep hearing from you. Why did you choose Jamaica? Is there a particular reason or, oh, and also can you tell us about what you shared earlier about the bees?
Oh, sure. Okay. I'll start with your first question. If I forget the second one, apologize. I've been running on 3 weeks of very little sleep and a lot of activity. So I chose Jamaica because in 30 years ago, I should say 1995, I actually did my undergrad at Northland Environmental and Liberal Arts College in Ashland, Wisconsin. I'm originally from Iowa, so Fairfield is near and dear. But I was studying environmental writing at the time and had an opportunity to come here to do a study abroad and fell in love with the Blue Mountains. I was with a host family, and then in 2001, I started a small NGO here. Building health clinics in the Blue Mountains. And so I've been bringing dentists and doctors and other volunteers here for many years to provide free healthcare to the area. And then it was in 2018 that I picked up my 16 acres and started really getting passionate about food and good, highly nutritious food as well. So soil of utmost importance there, as Jody mentioned earlier as well.
Isn't that why you valued World Central Kitchen? Because it wasn't just about giving out protein bars or whatever he said. It was
yes. Yeah. So traditionally in the humanitarian setting, when we deal with big droughts, famine, those kinds of issues, we tend to distribute things called high energy biscuits, HEBs, or this thing called plumpy nut. Most actually plumpy nut comes from the state of Georgia, or did, I guess, until USAID was no longer. But it's like a peanut butter injected with lots of vitamins, and people can just kind of bite it off and suck on it. Well, as you can imagine, yes, it keeps you alive, these kinds of food products, but it doesn't provide, let's say, hope. It doesn't speak to the whole person. That I think is another important aspect of MIU, right? We want to deal with the whole person. We are dynamic and ever changing and have a variety of needs. And so we want to be able to provide a meal that's local, that's relevant, that's culturally desirable, So even in here in Jamaica, as we were doing our initial assessments and we would go into communities, yeah, people want jerk chicken, but there might be communities of Rastafarians who are vegetarians. So we try to get an eyeball. Hey, about 25% of this community here is vegetarians, and so we will cater to those kinds of needs as well, right? So it's about bringing dignified meals to people who are experiencing disaster or catastrophic situations.
So now to tie it into the program, what did you learn from the program that really ties in with what you're doing right now?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is those climate smart, resilient agriculture pieces. So, an organization like World Central Kitchen comes in, we do what's called rapid relief. Right now, people are hungry, we feed them good food. As the response continues, right, you can imagine we can't do this forever. People need to go home. They need to start cooking. They need to start planting their own gardens again. Largely what has been devastated here in Jamaica has been what we call the breadbasket of the country. And so I'm already seeing shops and vendors dry up in terms of their produce, and the Ministry of Agriculture is now calling on farmers on the eastern end of the country to up their production. So bio-intensive farming is going to become very important, right? We're going to need to be able to inject some quick crops and try and meet the need. Because as you can imagine, we're an island nation. Otherwise, we're going to have to rely on imports, and that's going to be costly. And again, doesn't contribute positively to our environment. And so there's just layers and layers and ripple effects of the consequences of not being able to be self-sustainable.
And so how are you making that bridge, and what knowledge are you using from regenerative agriculture to help?
Well, I'll give you an example to tie it back to the bees. So one of the things that we've discovered on our assessments is that about half of the bee population here in Jamaica has been devastated by the Hurricane Melissa. And so without not only having their hives destroyed, those that are still with us are having a hard time staying alive because all of the trees have basically been de-leaved, and there's nothing for them to eat or pollinate. And so these several of the seeds that we're starting with are good, let's say, bee attractive seeds that we're passing out to some of our farmers. We obviously are procuring sugar and trying to feed some of those bees to keep them alive. Jamaica is very strict on what they will allow in terms of import as it relates to both sugar and bees. So originally we thought, well, we'll just bring some bees from another place. And they said, no, no, no. Our bees are very healthy, and we don't want any of your diseases, right? So it's those kinds of dialogues are happening as well.
Awesome. Well, okay, so this is such a good topic. I know Jody had some slides prepared, but before we do that, would anybody else out there have any questions at this point? You do have an opportunity if you have a particular question. Two people were asking about biochar, and I don't know what that is. And it'd be great to have an answer from one of our panelists here, but any other broader questions, we are happy to take that. Otherwise, we'll move forward with Jody's presentation. So anyway, biochar. Which one of you knows how to address this question? Let me see again. There was see if I can find it again. I love biochar.
I think I can answer it in the most simplistic way, because I know that our audience has a bunch of, there's a bunch of people on various levels of knowledge here. When I very first learned about biochar, the best way I could equate it to is you're taking essentially charcoal. So you've got carbon that's more stabilized. And so if you think about how quickly organic matter degrades, you have your sugars, you have your your hemicelluloses, which are going to be kind of the moderately degradable carbons, and then you've got your lignins, which is basically a tree trunk if you think of it like that. So when you have biochar, what you've done is you have produced essentially charcoal, which is a stabilized form of organic matter, so that when you place this biochar on a field, what that does is it provides kind of a slow release form of carbon that feeds the microbes in that soil. So I mentioned at the beginning that the soil microbes are what drive everything. And this is why we try to regenerate our soils that have been degraded in conventional agriculture. And what we do is if you apply that biochar, you're providing the carbon source, which is essentially the energy source for the microbes. So picture building a house. If you're going to build a brick house, you have to have not only the bricks available, the structural components, which would be, say, your nitrogen or your other inputs, your elemental inputs, but then you also need you need the workers to actually build or have the energy to provide the energy to move those building blocks to make your house or whatever. So if you've got soil and you've got microbes, they need not only energy in order to create new microbes, they need the substrates to create those new microbes. And so you have carbon for the energy, and then you have the components that are put together using that carbon energy. And so when you add organic matter to soil, you increase the water holding capacity of that soil by a very large amount. And so when you're increasing that spongy kind of texture of the soil that can hold water, you're not only reducing erosion of your topsoil, which is critical for plant growth, because that topsoil has all that organic matter in it that feeds the microbes that then process the nutrients that allow that plant growth to occur. But you're reducing the erosion, you're increasing infiltration at a deeper level, which allows roots to grow deeper into the soil. Well, all of this comes in and it produces a feedback response so that you're slowly, it's exponentially improving your soil. And biochar is one way that you can do this. So you're essentially you're using high temperatures, but you're not burning the organic matter. You're essentially using enough high temperatures so that you're breaking it down to a stabilized form of carbon. And I'm going to let Jim add a little bit of more of a scientific explanation, but that was my first take years ago when I first learned about biochar. So.
People use biochar around the world. It mostly is based on the raw material of wood. And it's challenging to consider biochar agronomically around the world because of the supply of wood. Not everybody has a big supply of wood. So depending on the availability of the raw material, biochar can be an extremely practical consideration as a supplement that you can add to a soil ecology. Okay, and once in that soil ecology, biochar by nature begins to first and foremost influence the physical properties of a soil. So it changes the physical properties of a soil in the direction of greater porosity, greater water holding ability, better aeration. It makes it easier for roots to penetrate a soil. It makes the holding capacity for nutrients greater whenever you add these kind of chemistries to a soil profile or a soil ecology. And it creates a home. These porous forms of organic matter, as biochar represents, creates a home for microbiology. And increasing the biology of the soil is really fundamentally something that is applicable and practical and relevant to every definition of regenerative and organic and even ancient Vedic science agriculture. So you cannot think of a soil health without thinking of soil microbiology. And biochar is integral to supporting the development of a enriched soil microbiology. Or you can immediately translate that into an improved soil health. Okay? But you have to be careful on consuming too much wood, depending on where you're at, in order to originate biochar. Biochar can also be quite expensive in agriculture. So it's probably more relevant to smaller scale agriculture where there's a fairly high value to the crop itself so that you can justify biochar economically.
Oh, that's beautiful. So I hope that helps address Ashok's question. It's on Maui there. You know, we're going to have to pull out of this very specific topic, but it does show you the knowledge and wisdom in the room. Now we're going to transition to some really sort of program-based questions, very important ones coming in. So one is the background that you would need to join the online program. Do you need to have any background at all to start, or can you be a newbie in this? And then I think this is a second part. So Carolyn writes that the style of agriculture being discussed and the amazing career experiences being shared are inspiring. The holistic culture is all very appealing, but also totally foreign to me. So this is a graduate student at the State University in Iowa. She's curious about how new students have oriented to this unique culture and what backgrounds folks are coming from when they enter this program. I think we should start with Denise on that one. Can you speak to that a little bit? Like, how was that, the culture of it, as opposed to like the specific knowledge that you learned? How is it assimilating into that holistic consciousness-based thing?
For me, it felt really natural. I think because I started my career in the nonprofit world, moved into international development, and then humanitarian assistance. And so, as I moved through my career, the progression almost mimicked that holistic, whole self approach that I think MIU is really good at supporting. So yeah, for me, it didn't really feel like a big jump. It felt like actually filling in and connecting some of the dots more so for me.
And then was the yoga and meditation part also equally natural, or, I mean, did that take?
Yeah, I mean, TM was new, so I will say that. And that's something that I continue to practice today. I actually was taught here by a Jamaican TM instructor. So, what I loved about it was I didn't have to go somewhere else. I can go see him anytime I want to. He has monthly webinar kind of check-ins. So it's very much real. And so I did get plugged into the TM culture in a way that I had never been before. I am a yoga teacher myself, so that was also a very kind of natural fit for me. So it felt congruent with who I was, which I think was why I was so drawn to MIU, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's a good way, and I hope that kind of helps people out there who were wondering about that component. It should feel very natural. If you've had any orientation to yoga or meditation, we're just working off of those principles, but we are doing a very specific technique that takes you very systematically through the approach. But then I think we have enough time now for the last point. So Jody, would you talk about the prerequisites to the program? Do you need to have, what kind of background do you need to have?
Absolutely. This is actually another very unique component of our program. So we have students from, like, for example, in the master's program, people from any background essentially can come and join our regenerative organic agriculture master's program. And so if you've got a bachelor's degree from a 4-year university and you come in, our classes are designed so that we essentially meet the needs of someone that has, never seen it before, if they're willing to put in the extra effort. Just like with any other school, if you join a program and if you don't have the background, you're going to have to work a little harder in the classes in order to learn it, catch up. We don't have specific leveling courses unless you get to our PhD level, and that gets a little bit more specific. But for the master's program, if you're willing to do the extra work, you will be able to catch up. And then if it feels natural for you and you're excited about it, you won't have any problem keeping up, but you will have to do a little bit extra work for that. If you come from any type of ag background or natural science background, even biology, anything of that sort, you're going to come into it to where we're basically going to take all these components in your background and plug them together in a way that is going to be a lot easier for you to understand. One example I use for people that have an absolute zero background in anything agriculture is I just have them think about, oh, have you ever been to the beach? You know how when you stand there in the sand, you watch the water come up, you see how quickly it drains out versus, hey, have you ever walked through a real clay filled area and every time you take a step, you get an inch taller because it sticks to your shoes? Those are very basic things that people don't even realize they already know the concept. So we apply the terminology and we start from there with these students. And so it's very natural, I've found, and I've had a lot of students that have had no background, did the extra work to learn the terminology and things to catch up, so to speak. And then they turned out being some of my best students because their heart was in it. Or what I've seen more than anything is we have students that come in and they're like, look, I've had a backyard garden, or I live in the city. I've been working off of a patio and I have potted plants that I've been growing. And so any student that has really ever sat out and, as the kids like to say these days, touch grass, they can apply what they've seen to what we're teaching. And then we just link that together. And so it's kind of, I almost would venture out to say, Parna, it's intuitive to an extent. Once we are able to show you, hey, this experience links to what we're teaching you right here, soil structure, the beach sand, and so we can accommodate, and we're smaller than a lot of universities. And so one thing we're really good about is, if you need extra help, if you are new to it and you're feeling stressed out or you're feeling, confused or lost, you just reach out, send an email, and you can meet with any of us. We do Zoom meetings. You can be anywhere in the world and we'll sit there and talk about things, and we'll get you where you need to be.
What about the other end of it? Someone with a lot of background. Like I see people here chatting it up.
Someone with a lot of background. And I've had that as well, to where there was a couple times I was like, wow, this is really easy for this person. And I don't want to rob them of feeling challenged. So what I have done, and this is actually on a very granular level, this is what I've done in my master's courses. And of course, with Jim's PhD program, it's completely different because it's very individualized. But in the master's program, where it's supposedly less individualized, I will actually go as far as, hey, if you're feeling like you want to apply this to something you're doing on your own land, say, because I've had a lot of students that have their own acres and they're trying a specific thing on their land. So I will actually substitute assignments out so that what they're doing meets the objectives of the degree, meets the objectives of the course. But then again, they're applying it to something that helps them individually. And we have that luxury because we are a smaller university and we're more niche. And so we can meet anyone in the middle. And if the rest of it's easy for them, they're going to fly through that part. And then they can say, look, I got finished with this. I would like to expand more on this assignment. Like, great, do this instead of that one. And so we have a lot of flexibility that a lot of other universities really don't have. And so,
so the assignment is like literally their work, their property.
I try every way I can. If they're finishing the other assignments really well, then I will take those same objectives and I'll notch it up some and say, here you go, we'll do this one then. And they'll come back and then they'll be, wow, okay, I learned so much. And so we do have that ability to do that. But also the stuff that I've had a lot of students come in and say, no, I'm very, very educated in this background. I came from this background. I know this. And then they read the assignments and they're like, wow, I really learned a lot still, because we have we have a lot of, we just have a lot of variability in the types of students. Therefore, we have assignments that meet the needs of all of them. And we have lectures that actually expand it. So
that gives a clear picture. And I guess we need to know program length. And also, Rena asked, is it all online? Is it really all online? Or is there?
We have, for the bachelor's program, we have an on-campus version, and we also have an online program. We also have blended programs. We have a lot of students that choose to do the online program in the undergraduate and then choose to come to campus to even take, kind of a blended approach to it, a hybrid approach. But you can choose to do the whole program on campus for the bachelor's. The master's program is a little bit different in that it's online, but we also, if you choose to want to come to campus, we have the setup for that. As I mentioned earlier, Jim's been working on getting our soils lab tip-top shape, and we already had a soils lab, but he's really, he's funding the expansion of it so that we can achieve the PhD level research needs that we had. And so by default, the master students, if you have a specific idea, you want to be on campus, you want to have your hands in the dirt, so to speak, then you can do that. That is an option. PhD students, we cater to international as well as, as well as stateside students. And so there are funding opportunities potentially on a case by cases that even would apply to students that don't have access to, federal financial aid in the States, for example. We have donors set up that you can even talk to about that. So basically there are options. I could leave it at that. And so
Thank you. Well, Nicole
Yes,
just
ma'am.
chimed in. So Nicole is was saying, I can attest to what Jody said. I've over 20 years of experience as a full-time organic farmer, and I've learned a ton. And I've been able to use what I'm already working on for my assignments. So there you go. I mean, we're at the end of our webinar. The energy is so great. We could keep going, but I do want to do some wrap-up points so that anybody who needs to go can go. And Jody, if you want to just put your attention on the chat, you can respond there if you want. But I'm going to go on to the final points here. So just some practical, how can you join kind of answers. Okay, so this slide is just showing you that every web page has that apply button, and it's a very simple process, very simple application. And our next entries for all levels of this program are February 2026. So you still have some time, but you should start applying now because there are some wonderful ways to prepare ahead of time. And I'll get to that in a little moment, but we just wanted you to know where we're located, Fairfield, Iowa. Again, you could be completely online or blended or on campus. But if you're wondering where we are, it's the southeast part of Iowa here, about an hour from Iowa City, 2 hours from Des Moines. And we also just have the advantage of the group meditation practices if you need a little bit of a boost for your practice and need that support. In case you missed us at the beginning, we do have financial aid for those who need it. And you can do the calculator, figure out how much you qualify for if you really need to have that information up front. And then these are opportunities for further interaction in case you're wondering more about our community. We have these visitors days. You could come for a Saturday. Maybe that would be a good opportunity to see the farm. I don't know if you're doing that, but there's also upcoming webinars on all sorts of topics. If you want to get to know more about our community, sometimes we do a webinar on the Ayurveda holistic care. They kind of all integrate in some way or the other, but the tm.org site, this is where you can find a local transcendental meditation center. And if you are accepted to be a student, you can learn this at no cost. And we recommend that you get your meditation practice sort of started ahead of time. And it'll give you that real strong support so that when you're a student, you just have some of your stress taken care of and you have a basis for supporting you. Meditation practice is essential in our time, more than ever. So this is our QR code for webinar replays. We're going to have this one posted in about 10 days to 2 weeks. We'll also send you a recording in case some of you want to catch some of the details or share it with others. So you can grab that QR code so you can bookmark it. So I raced through those points, but I'm going to just stop and check if there's any final points from Jody as we wrap up here. Maybe you can call your horses to you if they're available.
Absolutely my pleasure. Give me 2 seconds. I actually had to jump up briefly a few minutes ago because I left the feed door open. So give me just a second. I'll go call them back over here. And I'm glad y'all invited them. So the 2 you're seeing now, I have one convalescing in the other side of the house that y'all won't be. But then of course, horses are, when I was a kid, they're the reason I ever got into agriculture in the first place, because I was a little bit idealistic and I thought, oh, if I study horses, I'm going to be rich someday or I'll be able to pay bills. And then I got older and I was like, no, but it's a heck of a good hobby. So, yeah, let me call them over here real quick and I'll let,
we have another question though, while you're
I'll let y'all take some questions while I go grab them real quick.
So this is always a very important question for degrees. What are the job prospects? Like how do you earn money with this? Since it's not the conventional farming, how do you make money in something that's so good for us? Denise, do you have any points on that?
Yeah, I will say for myself, being, like trying to make the jump really from operations and humanitarian assistance to now food security. My master's was able to get my foot in that door. So then I switched and was able to be an agricultural advisor on a lot of our responses, going out, working with farmers in different communities that have had either droughts or losses of some sort, other, challenges, and really trying to work with them and identify practices that are climate resilient, that are sustainable, that can be implemented on, smallholder scales, right? We're talking 10 acres. I mean, that's the reality, I think, of a lot of our global farmers, having smaller pieces of land and trying to make sure that we are diversifying and not monocropping. Sorry, this show is definitely being stolen. So over to the horses.
But thank you for all your work with World Central Kitchen. I'm such an admirer. Thank you for those points. All right, Jody.
I can add that you will not make money with these things. So I'm going to put that out there right now, and I will never try to tell you otherwise. But it's good
You
for
also you can't travel
soul
anymore either.
I'm okay with that. I really like these boys. I've traveled a lot. So I let Jim do all the traveling. He probably skips across 4 countries a month.
All right, Jim, what were your points about the
Well,
job?
forgetting work using these degrees in agriculture, there are many things to consider. There's the public sector and the private sector. So governments employ people broadly in the field of agriculture. And you can become involved in conservation programs. You can be involved in regulatory processes. In the private sector, it's very wide as well. Certainly, you have the seed industry. In the organic world, there's the domestic and international exportation and the quality controls, the quantity controls, the regulatory exercises, the certifications in organic agriculture. There's employment in all of these areas in the private sector of agriculture. In the United States, we have about 65,000 new jobs in the field of agriculture per year. We only have about 50,000 graduates from schools of agriculture per year in the United States. So there's a shortage of people graduating with degrees in agriculture in the United States. Getting a degree in the United States in the field of agriculture will put you in demand in the workplace. Okay?
Can I add one thing to that? I mentioned it briefly, but I want to reiterate this. What we teach in terms of, in each program, it's the same topics and it's the same skills you would learn in any other university. The difference is we do it from a holistic way and we use the approach of consciousness-based education. And you can almost look at that as a vehicle to get to the same goal, but our students come out with just a holistic view of everything, a holistic approach. But as far as the skills you walk out of, it's the same as any other agriculture degree, just a little bit better.
Oh, that's so good. And now we have a new question up there, but I think if we answered that question, we'd be on past our webinar point. But I hope this inspires you to join our cohort, and we invite you to raise your hand if you want to be part of this really awesome program. Okay, I'm being told go for the question. All right. What about the effect of automation on jobs in this field? Yeah, it's a good question. Who wants to take this one? Denise or Jim? Not Denise. Okay, Jim.
Well, automation, of course, is the argument that AI is replacing jobs. And there's a certain amount of that for sure in the field of agriculture. Drones are inspecting crops now in California, and they're replacing crop scouts, people who've traditionally done scouting in fields. This is being done now much more often by digital sensors that are built into drones. and they feed back directly to computers in the office for the farm operation. So one of the things that we're doing at the Maharishi Agricultural University is we're teaching agroecology, we're teaching sustainable agribusiness, and we're teaching engineering practices in agriculture so the students can learn about the application of computer science, the application of AI, the engineering of new methods of production that are now a byproduct of all of these developments that a lot of people might first think of as developments that are replacing human beings in business or in the commercial side and industrial side of the world. But there's no reason to think about these things as replacements. It should be more, we should think of them as something you engage in, because this digital application in agriculture is saving farmers a lot of money. It's helping protect the ecology because it reduces the amount of chemicals that you need in conventional agriculture. So there's a lot of pluses to these developments, and no one should fear them, really. We need to embrace them. And we certainly are doing that here in Africa, and it should be done across the board everywhere around the globe.
Well, Jody says we also teach how to utilize these new tools. So that's
Exactly.
yeah.
And Jim really got right to the point. We should embrace it. We need to look at it as more of a platform that takes away some of the tedious day-to-day stuff so that we can then utilize it as a platform to exponentially advance in our field. I mean, it's not a replacement. Now, if we were doing a webinar on computer science, coding and stuff, I would not say these things. But since we are agriculture, we learn how to use these as a tool in order to advance ourselves, as practitioners, especially when climate change is a huge factor. We need to embrace these tools in order to advance more quickly. And how can we manage these crises, basically?
That's awesome. That's beautiful. We're going to have a whole other webinar on integrating AI into our degree program here. So we'll probably ask you back. Amin says, Jody, you take the prize for the best animal Zoom bombing. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up. I hope, Craig, that answered your question. Thank you for the 2-3 of you who really gave some beautiful questions and moved our conversation along. And thank you, Denise, for being with us. I'm so glad that Internet Gods supported. It was amazing to hear from you. So thank you for everything you're doing there, and good luck. So yes, we're getting thank yous from our participants. Join us in the spring entry or August entry, and hope to see you as part of our community. All right, that's it. Thank you. Bye-bye.